Hey, what's going on, guys? I know I told you about Tip Tuesday and how I was going to modify a frog in 2 different ways to help you bring in more fish into the boat. But before I get started with that, I want to go over some of my favorite top water baits and some of the conditions I like to fish them, and just go over these baits with you real quick. They're fairly expensive baits. You can pick them up pretty much anywhere. But let me talk to you about that before I show you the frog modifications. I'm pretty sure you would like it. Check them out. The first bait that I want to show you is the Chatterbait. It's one of my favorite baits. It's just a regular Chatterbait. Doesn't have anything extra on it. I don't do any kind of modifications to it. I don't do anything to this Chatterbait other than if you ever pull a Chatterbait out of the box and this piece is moving, you can take some, I guess, clamps or something that can pinch this down to prevent it from moving, because if you keep it in one spot, it'll actually help it squeak and run a little bit better. But that's only one modification that I usually do, other than, you know, adding a trailer and stuff like that to it. But I saw one of the FLW Elite Series guys talk about his trailers and why he puts those trailers on. And usually when you think of topwater fish or the topwater bite and topwater fishing, the first thing that comes to mind is obviously a frog. I mean, frog been around for years and years and years, and you know, they're one of the topwater baits out there on the market today, and choices that anglers, you know, pull out when they're fishing topwater. But the guy that I'm referring to, I actually forget his name. I was actually watching him on one of the Major League Fishing channels, and he was just annihilating these fish. And the one thing that he said was on his Chatterbait, he put one of the ribbit frogs on there. And on the ribbit frog, I mean, he's got these 2 little boot tails that cause extra commotion in the water. And I mean, I've used it several times, more than several times, and caught tons of fish on it. I also like to throw a boot-tailed swim bait on the back of there, or some kind of trailer that comes, you know, that just gives it that extra look. And I mean, I know some guys don't throw that in, or throw a trailer on there. They'll put it like a trailer hook on there and just use the skirt, just because they want the bass to bite the, I guess, the hook instead of something that's back here dangling. But the Chatterbait is by far one of my favorite baits to fish. And there's a new type out, I think it's by Strike King, and it's actually the Tour Grade or Tour Guide. And what that does for you is that tour, or that new Chatterbait, actually you can reel it in slow without it really falling down and sinking really fast. And it's got a real slow sink to it, so you can actually bring it in a lot slower, keep that Chatterbait in the strike zone a little bit longer. But this is one of my favorite baits, and the Chatterbait, I always have a trailer on there, either a boot-tailed swim bait or this ribbit frog, and I'm pretty sure you guys would really like this ribbit frog. But this is one of the baits I like to use. And the days I like to use this are like overcast days, and if there is a light wind. And the key thing that I really look for in the fishing this is, even if it's like a small or a really light drizzle. I'm not sure exactly what that is or what it does, but on those days and those conditions, the overcast, light wind, and a light rain, a buzzbait is my #1 bait, and it just catches fish. It's a really good bait. The next bait that I really like is a topwater walking bait. This is a Sexy Dog by Strike King Lures, and this bait is another one of my favorite baits. Depending on the weather and the conditions, either it being a bluebird skies or, you know, cloudy day or an overcast day, I change the color. But this is actually the bigger version. There is a junior that only has 2 treble hooks on it. I like to throw the junior the majority of the time, and if the wind's a little bit crazier, I'll throw this bigger Sexy Dog. But this is another one of my really favorite baits. If the sun's out and there is clouds out, I like to use something shiny to give that reflection from the sun to mimic those shad that are swimming around and giving it that, you know, that little shine. If it's dirty water, I mean, it really doesn't matter. I like to maybe probably use like something white with a white bottom. This has a white bottom, silver shine on the side. But clear water, you probably want to use something that's more translucent, something that's more see-through, and you know, it doesn't give off something too shiny, or something that, you know, a bass could swim up on it and say, you know, that doesn't really look too real. But this sexy dog right here is another one of my go-to baits. Now the bait that I'm going to show you next is actually I guess a buzz bait and a walking bait, or a topwater walking bait, like a sexy dog or a Zara spook, into one, and that is the whopper plopper. As you can see, this whopper plopper has this blade that spins and chops the water just like a chatterbait. But like I told you before, a chatterbait will sink. Well, the topwater spook or the sexy dog does not sink. And what this is almost like a sexy dog or a topwater walking bait with a chatterbait on the back of it, and it does float. So it's actually a chatterbait and a topwater walking bait that does not sink, and it stays in the strike zone a lot longer. And how you can fish this, I mean, you can pop it, and this propeller just goes crazy. It has an awesome sound to it, and it doesn't ever walk. It's usually a straight line motion or a straight line retrieve, and I'm really sure you can't walk this. I mean, if you probably tried and practiced, you might be able to, but I highly doubt it. But you know, and these are awesome, especially in lightly stained water, and even in clear water sometimes, especially if you have like a translucent color. You know, the rule of thumb is usually if it's, you know, dirty water, you want to go with darker and brighter baits, and clear water, you want to stay with, you know, your translucent colors, so, you know, the bass can't identify it when they're coming up to strike it or just to check it out. But this bait right here, I recently just got this. I haven't been fishing it no more than a year, probably less than a year, and I've caught some really good fish on this bait and lost some good fish on this bait. But this is called the whopper plopper from River to Sea, and if you don't have one of these things in your arsenal, you need to get one. My next favorite bait, by far, on small little ponds when the sun's going down, it's getting dark out, the jitterbug. The jitterbug is pretty dominant when it comes to night fishing when the sun's going down. This bait just catches fish. I love this bait. Anytime I'm back home in Pennsylvania and we're fishing small little ponds, man, this would be the first bait that I pull out either in the morning time or at nighttime, especially the black. The next bait that I just got, I didn't just get, but I had it for a while, and I really like it. It's a lot going on the bait, and it seems like it's a jitterbug that is on steroids, and that is called the pompadour. As you can see, it's got these huge wings, and it actually has like a huge wobble motion. It's got rattles inside it. It's got this huge blade on the back that stirs up the water, and it actually goes really far. You wouldn't think it would throw real far or cast really far with these wings on it, but it goes pretty far. It's got these stout treble hooks on it. You know, just when you set the hook on something like this, you need to make sure that you have that rod tip up and you are not giving any kind of slack, because any kind of direction that bass turns, you know, it's catching these wings, and this is just huge coming out of its mouth. And there's been plenty of times that I lost some really good fish on this because I wasn't keeping my rod tip bent really well, or, you know, the fish was just going insane in all sorts of directions. But this bait right here is super sweet. They're pretty expensive. The sexy dog isn't that expensive. A chatterbait's not that expensive. The whopper plopper is okay, and this pompadour, I think it might have been like $24, and I think I got it when it, you know, not first came out, but the first year it came out, and everybody was buying them so they can keep the prices really high because people wanted them. But this right here, this is an awesome bait, and I like to fish this in like those overcast days, light wind, and if the wind is too crazy, you probably don't want to fish any topwater bait, because you know, the waves are going to start crashing over, and it's going to, I guess, take over the topwater sound that you're trying to get the fish to bite on. So I usually like a light wind, nothing too crazy. Like if you're working your topwater bait and you can't hear it, or it's not working right because the waves are crashing down over top of it, you probably don't want to be fishing it. And then one of my other favorites, the one that I want to talk to you guys about today, is the frog. Now, let's talk about the frog modifications. I'm not going to take 100% credit for this tip and these techniques and these modifications, but I am going to take 100% credit for editing this video. Now, Tactical Bassing has a frog fishing video, how to walk the frog, how to modify the frog, and I've taken some of his tips. And a couple years back, Jacob Wheeler was talking about his frog modifications and what he did. And after Jacob Wheeler did it, I started doing it just because I, follow him and I enjoyed watching him fish. And he dominated it during the Major League Fishing Challenges. And I took his advice, and then after I was fishing it for a while, I saw Tactical Bassing talking about the same tips, and they're the tips that I've been doing after Jacob Wheeler. And these tips are pretty good, and my hook up to catch ratio on a frog is increased tremendously. And the first thing that you want to probably do is actually, you only need 2 tools. You need a pair of scissors and a pair of pliers. And the first thing you want to do is obviously trim the frog legs. And the reasoning behind that is that if a frog comes up and bites the legs, he's just going to pull the legs down underneath the water, and he's not really biting the hooks. And the reason why you shorten the hooks, because if he comes up to bite the legs, the shorter legs, which I have right here on this frog, if he comes up to bite the legs, 90% of the time, 95% of the time, he's probably going to grab the edges of those hooks. So trimming the legs is a plus, just because you don't want him pulling the legs down and not grabbing the hooks when he inhales that frog. All right, so you just take a pair of scissors, and you don't want them to be too short, but you probably want to I don't know, just guesstimate how long you think they'd be. But you don't want to have them too short. If they're too short, they kind of like stick out and they don't really move. You want them to still be able to move. If I cut one here, I can show you, because this actually needs to be cut. This length right here is probably good for me, and I'll compare the other leg to it. But that right there, that's probably about 1.5 inches shorter than this other side. As you can see, it's taken up, I pull it up there, the right leg is all the way up to my middle finger, and the other left side is all the way down to my pinky. So it's definitely very helpful, because now if he comes up to bite those legs that are shorter, he's probably going to get those hooks as well. Now the next thing, which is probably the most important thing on here, is actually these hooks. The frog actually comes weed guarded. If I run my finger over here, over these frog, or I'm sorry, not over the frog, but over the frog, over the hooks, I'm not getting stabbed by the hooks. So what I do next is I take these pliers, and as you can see, this or these hooks are actually pointed in toward the middle of the frog. They're pointed in, and they're pointed down. So what I like to do is I take these pliers, and I try to actually straighten the hook. So I have to turn it out this way a little bit, so I have them pointing more in a vertical way instead of pointing in. I have them pointing straight up and down. And you want to raise that hook just a little bit, so where if you were running your finger over it, you're getting stabbed by that hook. Not saying you want to run your finger down and get stabbed by it, but as soon as you come down to that hook, you can feel that point. And now as soon as that fish holds on to the frog without even pushing down on the frog, he could still get the skin in his mouth, penetrated by those hooks. So this is one of the most important things that you want to do. The best frog modification that I've ever done. And on this frog, I kind of have it done. I probably need to turn the hooks out just a little bit more. But if you can see, the hook is, you can see right here, the hook is raised, and as soon as I touch it, I'm getting snagged. I mean, I can let the frog hang from my skin. As soon as I'm coming here, coming up, I mean, he's in my skin right now. As you can see, dangling. All right, and you can see it through the glass right there. It's not touching the frog. It's a little above the frog, and I mean, I have it on the other side as well. And I pulled this hook out this way a little bit, so it's not touching the frog, and I have it pointing up just a little bit. So they're the two modifications that I do to the frog that actually help me out a lot more on my hook up to catch ratio. And another quick tip about frog fishing is that when a frog comes up to bust the water, immediately we want to set the hook. I've been watching I'm not sure if you guys watch it or not, or watch the guy with his name's, I think it's Mark Zona, and he's an awesome spokesman, and he just really crazy and goes fishing all over the world, and you know, picks up different tips and techniques and just fishes and just loves it. But the one thing that he advises is that before setting that hook, you probably want to feel that fish pulling your line. And what I mean by is, as soon as he come up and smashes that, you probably want to count 1 or 2 seconds before you set that hook, or actually feel him starting to pull your line before you set the hook. A lot of guys make the mistake, as soon as they hear or see that fish bust that water, they just assume that that fish has that frog in their mouth, and they set that hook and wind up missing a lot of those fish. So another tip is to, you know, wait a couple seconds before setting that hook when that frog busts the water. I mean, I know it scares us and surprises us, and we just want to catch fish, but you know, if you're making that mistake by setting the hook too early, you're not going to land any of those fish. They're the three most important things that I do when frog fishing. I wait a couple seconds before setting the hook. I modify the hooks a little bit by bending them out and pulling them up a little bit, and I cut the legs on it. Another thing that Jacob Wheeler does that I don't do is that on the back of the frog, let me get these little pointers here, about right here on the frog, in the middle of its bottom. I'm not sure how he does it. He might take like a little drill and drills a small hole in the back of that. And the reasoning behind that is, if you guys ever had a John boat with a little gas-powered motor on the back of it, and you start to get water in there, you can actually pull that plug out, you turn that engine on, and you gun it. And what happens is that water starts pulling out of the back of the boat, getting all that water out. You put the plug back in, and there's no more water in there. Well, his reasoning behind that is the same thing, because every once in a while a frog will start to gather water in it. You got to bring it back in, you got to squeeze the water out of it. Well, he says that every time that he does that, anytime he brings the frog back in, it never has any water in it. And on top of that tip, you probably don't want to make that hole too big, because if you make it too big, it's going to just suck in that water and probably sink your fish, or sink your frog. So it's got to be really settled. I've never really toyed around with it at all. But I mean, sometimes I like water being in there because I can throw it out a little bit further. But that's another tip that he does. He puts that hole in the back of that frog's bottom right there, and it pulls the water out of the frog when he fishes it. But those are the two tips of I guess the two main modifications that I wanted to share with you guys, and I really believe that it's going to help you bring in more fish. So try these tips out, and let me know what you guys think. I appreciate you guys following and keeping up with me. If there's anything else that you guys want me to talk about, please let me know. Like I said, you can follow me on Instagram at Bassn with Buddy. I have a Twitter, but I'm not on that as much, but you can hit me up on there too. My Facebook is Bassn with Buddy. Yeah, just let me know what you guys think about the video. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel, and just stay tuned, because I'll continue Tip Tuesday for a while, and I guess I'll see you guys next time. See you.